Welcome once again to the Set of the Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett, along with Kent Myers. We're here each week discussing topical issues and meeting interesting people. And this week we're going to be on a topical issue and meeting an interesting person.
Well, actually, we're going to be meeting two interesting people because we're going to have you as one of our two guests, but Gary Dejardin from the general manager of the Ford Center is going to be on, and I've entitled this show, Let's Shoot Hoops.
We're going to talk about the NBA, the opportunity to host an NBA team perhaps in the future, but certainly the opportunity to improve the Ford Center and really spruce it up quite a bit.
Yes, I'll be interested to hear kind of some of the inside details, if we can, about what's going to happen at the Ford Center, how it's going to look different. It looks awfully nice now, but how is it going to be improved? And I think Gary can help us out a lot with that.
It'll be an issue that goes before voters in Oklahoma City on March 4th. We'll talk to Gary Dejardin, who works for SMG, the company which manages the Ford Center. It's all today on The Verdict.
Every day America uses clean-burning natural gas instead of coal or oil is a day of victory for our environment. That's why Chesapeake chose to explore for natural gas exclusively, and we've never looked back. Because natural gas burns twice as clean as oil or coal, and reducing carbon emissions to combat potential global warming is every bit as urgent as cutting our dependence on energy imports. As America's #1 driller of new gas wells, Chesapeake is moving fast to find untapped reserves of natural gas here at home. It's the right fuel for America's economy and the fuel for a clean air future. We just happen to be early to see it so clearly. Chesapeake, natural gas wins the day.
Welcome back to the Set of the Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Today we're very pleased to have Gary Dejardin, the general manager of the Ford Center, with us. Gary did his undergraduate work at Tulane University in New Orleans, and at that time got started as an intern in the public facility management, starting at the Superdome. He even was involved in the Super Bowl 20, helping to stage that at the Superdome. He's been active in public facility management for over 20 years now, and today he is the general manager in Oklahoma City of both the Cox Convention Center and the Ford Center. Gary, we're really pleased you joined us today.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to talk about a lot of topical issues going on with the idea of improving the Ford Center, but I think your career field, it might be interesting to people. How do people get in the idea of helping to manage venues and sporting events for concerts and those types of things? How do you find that career path?
You know, I got started in it because I played baseball in college, and my major's in sports administration, so it was something that allowed me to still be affiliated with sports, and even though my goal of being a Major League Baseball player wasn't realized, this was the kind of the next best thing of being a part of what was happening with sports, whether it's college or professional or what have you.
And you work for SMG, which stands for what, and what do they do in a big picture sense? The general public might not be on the same page of knowing what SMG does.
We're the largest private management company that manages public assembly facilities in the world. We manage arenas, stadiums, convention centers, performing arts theaters. We're headquartered in Philadelphia, and we manage the Superdome and the Moscone Center in San Francisco and some facilities down in Florida. We manage them in Europe, and now we're making headway into Latin America, and we just got a contract for a new convention center in China. So the company is growing. SMG doesn't stand for anything. It used to stand for Spectacor Management Group, but everybody knew us by SMG and the acronym. So when the company went through some changes in ownership, the name stayed as just SMG, but it really doesn't stand for anything. And we've been around since 1975, still have the first 5 accounts: Nassau County Coliseum, Moscone Center, Long Beach Convention Center, Soldier Field in Chicago, and the Superdome in New Orleans.
I've been pushing the city to pursue an NBA team in general, and we are on the opportunity now to at least be considered for a relocated franchise out of Seattle. Right. And I would assume it's no surprise to you that if Oklahoma City is going to get in a long-term commitment from the NBA, they're going to have to make a long-term commitment to their facility. Kind of give the background and why that would be just kind of an automatic from your point of view.
Well, the business models certainly change in Major League Sports and have changed, and even in the entertainment industry, it's not the same as what it used to be even 10 years ago when the Ford Center was being designed. And the Ford Center is not unlike your house. It just happens to be right now 568,000 square feet. And you have to maintain it, you have to keep it up to date, and as technology changes, those needs also change, and so do the expectations of our customer. And in today's environment, our from customer service or anything, whether it's food and beverage customer service or the overall experience at the Ford Center, is not just comparable to other arenas. It's comparable to everything that we do in today's world. People compare their experience and expect the experience at let's say someone's buying a Ford to be basically the same as the experience if you go buy a Mercedes. The level of expectation is much higher than it used to be, and I know from where I sit, from the time that I arrived in Oklahoma City in 1999, our level of expectation has certainly gone much, much higher than what it has been.
I want to harken back to you coming to Oklahoma City in 1999. I know that must have been I don't know whether that was a choice or just an assignment, but
both actually.
Well, we're sure glad you're here, and moreover, we're glad you stayed after you came here to start out. How have you adjusted to Oklahoma City life and your family and all?
Well, I've had an opportunity to live in a lot of different places. Born in Rhode Island, North Carolina, Georgia, Kansas. New Orleans is my adopted home, but and my wife is born and raised in New Orleans, and we absolutely love Oklahoma City. And we have everything that we could ever want in a city. We have a great zoo, we have a wonderful airport, so getting in and out of the city and traveling is not an issue. It's big enough where we have all the creature comforts that we could ever want, ever experience, even living in New Orleans, without a lot of the headache and the hassle. It's clean, people are friendly. We have the wave factor. My brother lives in Dallas, and it's funny because he'll come up and visit, and our neighbors, whether we know them or not, if we're outside, everybody waves, and it's so unique from where I used to live. It's not the same, and those are the qualities that we really like about Oklahoma City.
Since you got to Oklahoma City, you've been managing the Cox Convention Center after it reopened in 1999, after the MAPS improvements, and then the Ford Center. Let's talk about the Cox Convention Center for a moment, because when it opened in 1999, Oklahoma City had 1 downtown hotel. Downtown has changed with 7 downtown hotels.
Right.
And talk about how the convention center has really evolved along with the expanded hotel rooms.
It's interesting because I remember this vividly. We were, at the time when the Renaissance Hotel was being built, we were talking about a need for having, we really need 700 hotel rooms in downtown Oklahoma City for us to continue growing on the convention side and getting more and more conventions. And now we've gotten to the point where we're talking about we really need a 700 room property under one roof, not just an overall downtown, but one property. And it's unbelievable how much our standards and our expectations have gone up over that period of time. And as the city continues to mature, I think that those expectations are going to continue going higher.
There's a need for the Ford Center to be improved.
Yeah.
Take people basically through the improvements. What was the Ford Center lacking the day it opened?
The biggest thing is probably the finishes. Is probably the first thing that strikes most people when you go into the facility. It's really a nice looking arena. It's a nice design. The club and suite level is done very well on the finish side and the design of it. But the 100 level and the 300 level really were lacking in the finishes. It's very bare bones. It's concrete. It's dark. The restrooms are cinder block and concrete floors, and just your basic sink. It's very I don't know, sterile might be a good word. I remember when the Ford Center opened in 2002, there was an article written in the paper a week before the building opened, just singing its praises. But it didn't have a lot of bells and whistles and sizzle, but it was very functional. And the next, about a month and a half later, same columnist wrote a column just ripping the building, mainly on the finishes, because it really needed an upgrade in the finishes. Here we have a building that was designed for NBA and NHL specifications, but it lacked a lot of the high-level finish and lighting and bright and airy and that sort of thing. And I remember the paper writing an editorial about that very thing, that the city needed to start moving sooner rather than later and fixing that and upgrading the finishes in the building. So a lot of what we're talking about with these improvements from the March 4th vote go right along those lines in fixing that issue that we recognized and was recognized back in 2002.
Let me jump in and get us to a break. We're visiting with Gary Desjardins of SMG. His company manages the Ford Center and the Cox Convention Center in Oklahoma City. We want to talk to him about the improvements that are proposed for the Ford Center. Also, Tulsa will be opening up a new arena. The show airs in Tulsa. I want to hear you talk about how that market will be changing with the advent of a new arena coming online. It's all coming up next on The Verdict.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
That land next door was a mess. Take more than a lawnmower to revive that land. I heard the oil and natural gas people was cleaning up old oil sites, and it wouldn't cost us a plug nickel. Oh yes, sir, it was quite a revival. The whole church showed up, want to make a playground for the kids. It sure is a blessing.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers. Our guest today is Gary Desjardins. He's the manager of the Ford Center and the Cox Convention Center, employed by SMG, the company that manages those arenas, and will also be managing the new arena up in Tulsa.
Yeah, tell us about the Tulsa arena.
Well, that's
'cause our show airs up there.
Well, the BOK Center is located in downtown Tulsa. It's opening in September of this year. It's going to be a massive facility. It's very big. About 18,000 seats, at least up there. They kind of say, well, since we have 18,000, they're going to have 18,001. But it's a pretty big building, and It's an exciting time for Tulsa and actually for all of Oklahoma to have these two facilities in the state. It's really really a good thing for the state and marketing us across the country.
How do you see the fact that your company's going to be managing that as well as these here in Oklahoma City?
Well, it's a lot better than having somebody else managing it, because there is a synergy between event schedules and being able to tag team in terms of us and marketing to the booking agents and the promoters, and being able to know what those schedules are to maximize the amount of revenue that we can generate for any event, and that we're not necessarily going after each other to that degree. There may be a time or two where that may happen, but by and large, it's much better to be working with them as opposed to against them.
Mm-hmm.
One of the changes that's undergoing in Oklahoma City is the removal of Interstate 40, which passes right by the Ford Center. And when the interstate moves, a boulevard is going to replace it. And so when you think about it, the Ford Center really becomes a southwest-oriented building, so its address will be on the boulevard as opposed to Reno, which is where it is now. And so, right. Gary, I know a lot of the improvements kind of address that issue, because in 2012, the interstate will be gone, and in 2014, the boulevard will open.
Well, that's the most logical place for the building to be able to move, and it was something that even again, back in 2002, we somewhat had recognized of what happens if we could cover the loading dock and have an entry there or a plaza there for when the interstate moved, and it just seemed to create just a logical crowd flow and crowd movement through the building, where we now have people entering from the north and from the south, which is better utilization for the entire facility. It helps with crowd flow through, it helps on our concession stands and our revenue, and actually reducing lines, because most people were going to go to the straight or to the closest concession stand that they see, and rather than walking all the way around the building, now we have full utilization of the facility. So that new entry makes a lot of sense, and something that, again, that we talked about back in 2002 wanting to do.
Restaurants and other amenities, what would be added into these proposed improvements?
The nice thing is seeing how many different options that we could offer to our guests when they come to any event. So now we would have, right now we have the Ice House, which is somewhat of a budget restaurant in the Ford Center. Our budget was pretty limited on when we did that. And now we'll have a restaurant and a club area there, right where the Ice House is. A little bit larger, but now we'll be able to offer white table dining and something a little bit more upscale, plus a club on the 100 level, which we currently don't have. On the 200 level, we'll have outdoor patios, which is kind of a neat feature to be able to go outside and, if it's nice, to be able to overlook the downtown and be able to go out and get something to drink or something to eat outside, and then do the same thing up on the upper level. The upper level is somewhat, and has been since the building was designed, kind of the last one on the totem pole, and now we're able, with these changes, to be able to incorporate all of those features throughout the building, no matter where you're sitting. So if you're in the upper level, you'll still have access to a club and a bar, and be able to go outside to an outdoor patio, a kid zone, and a family area.
Tell me about the family kid zone. What do you anticipate there?
That's a new development, and something that we've seen recently in the last few years. For families, and basically doing something interactive. It's the events now are not just sit and watch. It's you become part of it, and this is a way to really get kids and families involved in what's happening. And for 3 hours, if you have a 3-hour event, sometimes for a family show, a hockey game, or what have you, kids can get a little antsy and they want to stretch their legs a little bit, and this gives them an opportunity to go and hit papa shots or play a video game or do something to break the monotony during an intermission or during a timeout. And it's just a really neat feature. Again, it makes the event experience much more than what it used to be. And again, even 20 years ago, these things were not part of what you would expect to see in an arena, and today it is expected. And again, these improvements go straight to improving the overall event experience, no matter what the event is. It could be a concert, it could be a family show, a Blazers hockey game, a Yard Dogs football game, an NBA game. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be the circus or Sesame Street. the overall event experience is going to be enhanced for everybody coming to the Ford Center.
And Ken, it basically will work like this with the taxation opportunity that the citizens will have. There will be a 12-month proposal for a penny on the dollar sales tax that began January 1 of 2009 when the Maps for Kids tax ended. And those improvements will go to fund improvements at the Ford Center. Regardless of whether the NBA came or not, it would be Ford Center specific. If we get the NBA's Board of Governors to vote to move that franchise to Oklahoma City, and we get a signed lease with the team, then the tax would continue 3 more months, and that money would go to build a practice facility that would be specifically for the team. Citizens would still own it, but for all practical purposes, the team, the NBA team, would be managing the facility as long as they were in town.
Well, let me ask you, when, assuming the March vote turns out affirmative on the initial tax, when would the Ford Center improvements begin?
That's a great question. There's a lot of administrative work that has to be done in selecting the architect and doing the design work and putting the bid documents out for bid, and then a contractor bidding it and then awarding a bid and then going ahead and get started. One of the challenges that we do have is we're hosting the Big 12 tournament next year in March of '09. We're hosting the Women's Regional next March, in March of '09. So those are 2 big events that we know are coming, and we'll have to work around, as well as the Blazers and some of the other events. There may be a block of time where we do have to shut down, depending on the event schedule and what the construction schedule is, but a lot of that is yet to be worked out.
Well, now, even if whether we get an NBA team or not, the improvements to the Ford Center are going to make Oklahoma City more attractive to the Big 12 and to the NCAA,
Absolutely.
will it not?
They were one of the first calls we took, was the Big 12 saying, what can we do to help you pass this initiative? Because it's really going to help with Big 12 events and securing future NCAA events. I think with the time frame, we would start immediately, but if by starting you mean as dirt turning, no. I mean there's a lot of behind the scenes work. It'll take about 18 months. And as far as having to construct a facility while it's still operating, it's pretty similar to what we did at the airport. Imagine trying to build an airport and operate an airport at the same time. We've done that, and we've been doing that same sort of work with the horse show facilities at the fairgrounds and trying to keep that horse show business going while we're building new facilities.
Well, you did it at Cox, did you
We did that at Cox, and we did it actually at the Ford Center, because when the Ford Center first opened, all we had 28 suites. We didn't have the full 55. And when the sales were going through the roof on their suite sales, we ended up building out the rest of them, and that was all done while we were still open.
We are out of time. Gary, thanks so much for coming on The Verdict.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thanks.
Gary Dejardin, the general manager of the Ford Center and the Cox Center, and his company will be managing the BOK Center in Tulsa as well. Kent and I'll be back with a final word after this.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, wrapping up a show on the Ford Center and the Cox Center.
Yeah, interesting show with Gary. It's going to be an interesting time at the Ford Center and in Oklahoma City.
Lots of information coming to voters in Oklahoma City about that March 4th vote. Kent and I'll be back with another episode of The Verdict next week, and we'll see you then.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.